Hello, everybody. My name is Jess Newley, and I'm the Community Science and Education Director here at Friends of the San Juans. And I'm super happy to be a partner and part of this larger program called MoltSearch. It's a community science program put on through the umbrella of Washington's Sea Grant and WSU Extension. So Friends of San Juans is helping coordinate and train community members here in San Juan County. And this recording is for those of you who can't make it to the virtual classroom training. So hopefully you can watch this and learn all of the background you need to join us in person on the beach and get the in-person training as well. The first thing that you want to do is download the MyCoast app. You can find this in the App Store and then create an account. This is going to be the main tool to be used in your surveys. In this training, we're going to cover some background, crab molt identification, and finish with the survey protocol. The ID and survey protocol are covered in the guides, which I emailed to you. And just note, I am not the expert on the European green crab, but this training was developed in partnership with the experts at Washington Sea Grant. All right, background on European green crab. What are they? Where do they come from? Why are we worried about it? And I'm going to touch on what's being done about it. Sorry. The European green crab has a long history as a damaging invasive species around the globe, but it's quite a recent arrival along Washington's inland shores. As the name suggests, European green crab's native range is in the Northeast Atlantic Ocean, highlighted here in the blue. From there, green crab have established populations along nearly every temperate marine coast worldwide. The solid red lines show primary invasions, and the dotted lines show what we call secondary invasions, where green crab has stepstone from one place where it is invasive to another. So what makes the green crab so successful? First, they are very small. In the first free-floating stage called a zoea, and the next stage called a megalopa, they are very small, and it's easy for them to hitchhike to new areas via human activities such as ballast water, such as ballast water that transfer of shellfish material, and with seaweed used as packing material for shipments of live bait worms or seafood. It's also super prolific. Here's a female carrying a clutch of bright orange eggs. Each female can produce up to 250,000 eggs in a single clutch. And in our region, females can produce multiple clutches per year from a single mating event. And they also reach reproductive size very quickly. Green crabs are also generalists. They can eat a very broad diet, and they are capable of eating and subsisting off nearly anything they can get their claws on. They prefer to be predators and eat some of the same foods as we do, such as shellfish, but they can also prey on a wide range of items, as you see on this list. And they not only survive, but reproduce on an entirely vegetarian diet, including eelgrass, which, as I'm sure a lot of you know, are very critical and sensitive habitat here in the San Juan Islands. They're also very tolerant. They can tolerate a wide range of temperature and salinity. Compare the tolerance ranges of green crab, which are the black lines, to our native Dungeness crab shown here in the white lines. Pretty big difference. Finally, they thrive in estuaries where rivers meet the sea, which is also where a lot of shipping occurs. That means that they are more likely to be picked up and transported around the world. What is at risk? A lot. The densities that green crab are able to reach are the real drivers of potential ecological impact. This illustration highlights some potential impacts. The figure on the left shows some of the vibrant features of the Salish Sea estuaries that we love. As predators, green crabs can eat up a lot of our shellfish. They also compete and consume native crab species like the Dungeness. In other parts of the world, green crab have damaged eelgrass beds by ripping up roots while digging and also just eating it. And the dense populations might destabilize shorelines through burrowing. The arrival of green crabs on the West Coast is quite recent. This crab was found on the West Coast in 1989 in San Francisco Bay. Evidence suggests that they probably got there with seaweed packing material. Over the next decade, the free-swimming larvae rode ocean currents and spread northward up the coast. They've been aided by warm climatic events, strong El Niños, and the blob event in 2014 and 15. Over time, they've continued to spread northward. Initially, they skipped the Salish Sea because the Salish Sea was somewhat protected by the volume of surface flow that kept green crab larvae from getting swept into the waters. However, unfortunately, that didn't last. In 2012, it was found in a small embayment just west of Victoria. And then in 2016, the first green crab was discovered on the San Juan Island by a trained volunteer working with a program called Crab Team, coordinated by Washington Sea Grant, and that was in Westcott Bay. And as you can see, as these circles continue to grow, there has been outbreaks surrounding the area. In 2022, the first detection in Hood Canal. And 2019 is a significant one up there at Lummi. There's now a huge network of entities working on this, including nonprofits, tribes, and federal partners who are working to manage their populations and are also looking for evidence of spread to new areas. You can visit that website, European Green Crab Hub, for more info. This map shows where surveys are done in recent years. The black dots showcase where surveys did not find evidence of green crab. The green dots show at places where surveys did find evidence of green crab, and the size of the green circle indicates the size of the population. The big picture is green crab remain rare across the inland Washington shorelines. However, populations are growing and spreading statewide. We are trying to slow the spread. And the state has responded to this ecological disaster, really, and Governor Inslee declared it an emergency related to the green crab in 2022. Our strategy in Washington State is early detection and rapid response. One way early detection work is being done is through live trapping. You might know some people that do the more intense part of the green crab monitoring team. This is very effective if the European green crabs are close enough to smell the bait. Many crab team volunteers are involved in this effort. It is, however, very time and labor intensive. Another way to do early detection is to look for their molts, and this is where MoltSearch comes in. A MoltSearch survey can be done in just 20 minutes, less if you're working with others, and can be done at any place where you have safe and legal access to the shoreline, which is why I really love this community science program, because it's good for all ages, students, families, not intensive, like I just said, and you don't need a lot of gear either. MoltSearch involves conducting semi-systematic beach surveys for the molted shells of green crab and submitting the findings using a free app called MyCoast. The rest of this presentation is going to be about how to identify the European green crab and how to conduct a MoltSearch. Unfortunately, you won't be able to ask your questions right now, but hopefully we'll have some time and then following weeks in person, or you can email them too. Okay, now for some fun ID time. The only thing you really need to know for MoltSearch is how to identify the European green crab. We will still be going over some common native crabs as well, but don't get overwhelmed. There's a lot of crabs out there, a lot of things to know, but really just knowing how to identify a green crab is the most important thing. Okay, so some basic crab anatomy. The carapace or back shell is the largest shell on a crab and most important feature for determining which species you are looking at. Species are most often identified by their marginal teeth or the spines along the edge of the carapace. The number and shape of these spines is unique to each species. The eyes are usually not present on a molt, but their position on the carapace can help distinguish species. The rostrum is part of the carapace that is between the eyes of the crabs. This often has a characteristic number of spines, bumps, shapes, and length. And then we have the walking legs and then the claw or chilliped. Before diving into what you're looking for when trying to ID a European green crab, we want to highlight the name green crab is more likely to cause confusion than help with ID. European green crabs are not always green at maturity. They can be bright brick red, and as juveniles, they spurt all sorts of light and dark patterns that help them camouflage. Second, molts lose their color over time and bleach out. So really color is not an identifying feature. As you can see, that lighter one is the molt on the bottom left. Third, there are many native crab species that are also sport green or greenish coloration. So targeting any crab just as being green will lead to a lot of mistaken identity. And for all those reasons, color, as I said, color is not a good identifier. Here's a European green crab, and its most common coloration is indeed green. So outside of color, what are the features you should know about the species that make it identifiable? This crab only grows to a maximum of about 100 millimeters or 4 inches across the carapace. If you see something bigger, it's almost certainly not a green crab. Here are the eyes, but mostly as a reference point. To the outside of each eye, green crabs will have 5 pronounced serrations, spines, or marginal teeth. Between the eyes, the rostrum has 3 bumps. The carapace overall has a shape that might be called a diamond or gem. And the last pair of walking legs is slightly flattened and edged with very fine hairs. Without a doubt, the best feature to quickly ID this species is the number of marginal teeth. Regardless of age, size of the crab, or whether it's a molt or very old, these teeth should be distinct and look like a serrated knife. One of my favorite ways to remember the main features, which is the teeth and the size, is that you hold your fist up. It's not going to be bigger than a fist. If you fist pound or high five, you're going to have 5 fingers on that fist. So your size of the fist and then 5 marginal teeth. Which is a green crab? In this photo or in your bin, can you identify which of these species is the European green crab? Just going to give you a couple seconds. Take a look. Remember to count those teeth. It's hard to tell the different sizes. And if you got C, you are correct. Now let's compare with some of the common native species that you might see. The most commonly encountered crabs on the beach and maybe the most abundant in our area are shore crabs. We have 2 native species, both in the same genus, Hemagraspus. Using the 5 spine rule, we can quickly see that they are not European green crabs because both of these species have only 3 spines. But before you look that closely, you might also note the shore crabs have carapaces that are more square in shape compared to the six-sided shell of a green crab. Using that information, can you find the shore crabs in this photo? Just going to give you a few seconds. And there they are at the top. Another group of crabs very often mistaken for European green crabs are native spider crabs, including kelp crabs and decorative crabs, a couple of my favorites. This is a big group of species, and so they will have different numbers of marginal teeth, but you don't need to remember that at all because the most obvious difference between spider crabs and European green crab is that the spider crabs have a shell that is longer front to back than it is wide. This is because between the eyes, the rostrum protrudes very far. And by comparison, green crab have a shell that is wider side to side than it is long. Using that information, can you find the spider crab in this photo? There it is. E. Perhaps the single native species that is most commonly reported as European green crab is our native hairy helmet crab. This crab can be greenish and is a rare encounter, which is why it might catch some people's attention. Helmet crabs get close to the 5-spine rule, but actually have 6 spines. However, more striking than that is the overall shape of the shell, which has a pointed front, as well as very bristly, bumpy shell and legs of the species. Green crabs have a very smooth shell, but even after molting, a helmet crab shell will retain a very rough structure. Using that information, can you find the hairy helmet crab carapace in this photo? If your answer was D, you are correct. One of the final species we'll cover that is commonly mistaken for European green crab is the black-clawed crab. In some ways, the shell is very similar. However, this species has only 3 marginal teeth. It might appear as if a green crab shell can be worn down and the 5 teeth eroded to 3, but that's not actually something we really see with green crab shells. They don't get that worn down. Another clue to the ID of the black-clawed crab, if you actually have the claws, is that they should have black tips. Green crab claws can have a dark or even blue hue to them, but never that much black. Using that information, can you find the hairy helmet crab carapace in this photo? If you couldn't find one, you're right. There isn't one in this box. So those are the species of crabs that are most commonly confused for European green crab. Next, we're going to go cover a group of local crabs that may be less likely to mistake for the invasive, but since this program also offers you the chance to collect data on our iconic Dungeness crab, we want you to feel familiar with them. We have several species of relative native crabs that we call cancer crabs because they generally fall in the same family. This family includes Dungeness crab, graceful crab, red rock crab, and pygmy rock crab. Because of their relatively oval or fan-shaped carapace shape, they are often mistaken for European green crabs. One feature to note is that they all have many more marginal teeth than the European green crab. The most important for the MoltSearch protocol is the Dungeness crab. This is our largest native cancer crab and most familiar. While you might be very comfortable identifying this crab already, several specific features are good landmarks for telling it apart from others. This species is widest at its elongated 10th spine or marginal tooth. That widest tooth is what you set your crab gauge against, and it stands way out from the shell. If you have claws, the species has serrations or bumps on the upper edge of the claw. The very close but smaller cousin of Dungeness crab is a graceful crab. The key feature of graceful is that It is widest at the 9th tooth, and the 10th tooth is just a slight notch behind the widest point of the shell. The widest spine on the graceful crab doesn't jut out as far as the shell as it does on the Dungeness crab shell. Here's a larger view, and we can highlight the different shape of those spines. One trick is to drag your nail along the rear of the carapace. Even if you can't see the notch on the graceful crab, you should be able to feel it. Another way to tell those two species apart is if you have claws. Dungeness have serrations on the top edge of their claws, as seen there. And true to their name, graceful crab have a much smoother appearance overall, including no serrations or bumps along the top of their claws. So graceful. The other common crab to compare the Dungeness is the red rock crab. It can grow almost as large as the Dungeness crabs, and if you're a crabber, these are what you also will find in your crab pots along with the Dungeness. Though they have the same number of marginal teeth, those of the red rock crabs are blunter than those of Dungeness, which are pointier. The edges of these crabs were knives. Rock crabs would be a butter knife, but Dungies would be a steak knife. Red rock crabs, like their close cousins, the pygmy rock crab, also have black tips to their claws. Again, if you have the claws, this can be a helpful distinguishing feature, but if you can't find the claws of your molt, you'll have to look at the carapace. Given what we just talked about with our native cancer crabs, can you find each of the 3 most common in your bin? Graceful, Dungeness, and red rock. There you go. Sorry, I know I'm going pretty fast. Didn't give you a whole lot of chance, but there they are. Oh, right. So now that you know what you're looking for, I'm just gonna go this super quick in hopes that you can join me on the beach where we'll take our time going over protocols and practicing them. But we're gonna dive in a little bit to the survey protocol for the European green crab early detection program, the MoltSearch. So like I mentioned before, MoltSearch is a semi-systematic survey. The basic outline is that you spend 20 minutes looking for and collecting crustacean molts. You identify what you've collected to the best of your ability. You submit a photo of your collection, as well as additional information on any green molts that you found. And you also have the option of submitting some data on the Dungeness crabs that you found. This is a simple 4-step survey protocol. You can do it anytime on any Salish shoreline that's safe and legal access, and it's app-based data submission. There are 4 steps. The first step is to figure out where you can access the Salish Sea shoreline safely and legally. So here in the San Juans, we are lucky to have a lot of public access beaches. So state parks, county parks, all of the public access are okay. And then if you are a shoreline property owner or have friends, just make sure that you get permission to be able to do the surveys. And you want to bring these with you. A phone that can take photos, a collection container per person, which can be really anything from yogurt containers, Tupperware, baskets. Just remember the molts are very fragile, so you want something nice and sturdy. A measuring device, ideally calipers, and the MoltSearch ID guide or the digital access. Molt searches should be fully focused on the areas of the shore where you expect to find most molts. Molts float in and are deposited along other floating materials as the tide recedes. Where on this beach would you expect to find the most molts? There you go, A and C. That's where you can see the rack lines or areas of high deposit. This is where seaweed, eelgrass, wood, etc. has been deposited on the beach as the tide ebbed. Beaches will have 1 or more rack lines, and sometimes there may be a rack line along the edge or grass line or shrubbery if you're searching in a more marshy area. Beach stuff also tends to collect at the base of logs and vegetation. Before you start Spend a moment scanning visually for where molts might pile up and deciding amongst your group where each person will search. And then you begin a timed hunt. Fan out and collect as many molts as you can find. It's like an Easter egg hunt. At this point, you aren't stopping to identify anything. Just collect each molt that you find. All crustaceans are also fair game, even shrimp molt. Looking for all molts, even very small ones, will help make sure that you don't miss any molts from very young and newly arrived green crab molts. So just like an Easter egg hunt, go out and grab them all and don't worry about what you're finding. And yeah, you should set a timer too. That always helps. And then keep searching until that timer goes off. And when the timer does go off, then you go to a meeting point and you can go through and sort and count your molts. So how long should you search? Search for 20 person minutes, meaning that if you are searching alone, search for 20. If you have a buddy, the two of you can each search for 10 minutes. So you set your timer for 10 and the two of you go out in different directions and search for molts. If there are 4 of you, search for 5 minutes. Same thing, set that timer for 5. You can all begin in one spot and then you all disperse and search for 5 minutes. Remember that this assumes that you're covering different ground. If you have more than 4 people, we recommend splitting into multiple groups, and also recommended an alarm. Again, set that timer with a loud alarm. It's easy to lose track of time when molt hunting. The next step is to identify what you found. Sorting and carefully identifying every molt you have collected is a great way to make sure you haven't missed any green crab hiding in the bunch. However, confidently identifying a European green crab and being able to distinguish it from native crabs is the only essential thing you need to do. So again, you're gonna have a lot of different molts. You're gonna have some different species. While it's cool to be able to identify them all, and that's what I love about this, is that you learn all the native shore crabs and everything. Really the only thing that you need to do is learn how to identify the European green crab. So don't get overwhelmed. As mentioned previously, you are also welcome to submit data on any Dungeness crab molts you find. It turns out very little is known about the juvenile life stages of Dungeness crab, despite their VIP status as adults. So MoltSearch is building a data set on where young Dungeness live and how they grow, in addition to monitoring for green crab. Next, you want to take a gorgeous overhead photo. Be sure to add an object for scale, ideally calipers or a ruler. And know that the staff at Sea Grant double check every submitted photo to ensure that they haven't missed anything. Your photos are really useful. If you do find European green crab or are submitting the optional Dungeness molt data, the app will prompt you to share how many green crab or Dungeness molts you found. It's very common to only have a part of a crab because the molts get beat up over time. Like I said, are very fragile. Only count the molt if you have more than half of the carapace. Half a carapace should give you enough information to idea, even if it's tricky, and this way you make sure you don't count crab shells twice. The app will ask you whether you found a molt, a dead crab, or a live crab. Then it will ask you the sex. You can find the crabdomen guide on the backside of the ID guide. Females have a wider and more rounded flap than the males. Now, if you do find a European green crab, the app will ask for photos and measurements and some additional information for up to 10 molts. Measurements are important since crab size correlates with their age, and that gives an indication of how long ago they arrived to that location. MoltSearch asks you to measure the carapace width, the widest width of the back shell, including the spines. Does anyone else go crabbing for Dungeness? If so, you'll notice that's a different way from how you measure it when you're crabbing. All MoltSearch measurements ask for the carapace width to be measured this way. Know that the MyCoast app prompts you for each piece of information we're interested in. We'll take a look at how the app works in just a minute, so don't worry about remembering all of this. Calipers are ideal tool to use. You can pick up utility calipers at Harbor Freight for $2 each. That's on mainland. I'm not sure where we can get it in the islands. But if you come to one of the in-person beach surveys, I'll get you some. Note, these are pretty cool tools. You can measure the outside dimension with the lower jaws, the inside dimension with the upper jaws, and you can even measure the interior depth of something such as a screw hole with a metal rod that comes out of the side. You can also use a ruler and in a pinch, there's a scale on the back of the protocol guide, but be aware that you print the guide out yourself. It may not be the right size. For all of your measurements, you'll round to the nearest millimeter. And if you're using vernier calipers, you read the measurement with a 0 on the vernier scale. The slidey part slides up with the main scale above. Just like that. Round near to the nearest millimeter. If you decide to collect Dungeness data, the app will ask you for additional measurements for up to 10 Dungeness molts, both width at the widest point and also the length or height. And just to mention again, so you won't be needing to measure anything when you submit your data and do a survey, other than if you think you found a European grab or you want to do the optional Dungeness data. Submitting your molt survey. As I mentioned, the molt survey reports are submitted through MyCoast. It's available on the MyCoast website and also as a free mobile app. You need to set up an account with a login and password. They don't spam you. The only time I've received an email from them is after I've submitted a report. You might already have this app. It has a lot of great tools and resources like a tide chart option. You can also report creosote, abandoned boats, king tides, and other things. But for this purposes, you open it up and click Add Report, which will bring you to the page where you see so many different reports that you can make for a variety of agencies and programs. MoltSearch is a new option clear at the bottom of that list. Feel free to open up your MyCoast app on your phone if you already have that set up. Here's the first screen for MoltSearch reports. The app will automatically put a pin in your exact location and will note the time. Here in the island, sometimes, as you know, service self-service isn't that great. So you can, if the location isn't working, you can manually move that dot around. And also, if you don't have service at all, this can be done when you get home on your computer or again through the app, but you just have to manually put where your location was. Finding no molts is valuable information too. So if that's what happened, please submit a report and check the no molts found box. But in this case, let's say we did find molts. So we'll say yes. And we can either take a photo right there through the app or upload one that we took earlier in the beach. Then we'll hit that yellow button at the bottom right to continue moving through the form. So yeah, we're gonna say, yes, we did. You'll take a photo from the beach, or you can upload it later and select it from the library and then hit that yellow button. If you found European green crab molts, you'll toggle on yes to answer the did you find European green crab molt? And so you move that over to yes, which will prompt you to enter more information. You'll need to record the total number of green crab molts that you found. You can use, you can see it reminds you to only include shell fragments greater than 50% of the back shell. And if you want to include additional photos of those molts, the app asks you to enter a photo and additional info separately for each individual. It also prompts you for that carapace width and the sex if you can't determine. And if you just aren't sure, you can put uncertain. If you found more than 10 European green crab or Dungeness, you'll submit photos and measurements and the other additional info for just 10 of them. With eyes closed, you would randomly choose just 10 of them to work with randomly. Okay, we're nearing the end, almost there. And then It'll offer you the opportunity to enter data for Dungeness data. Again, this is optional. If you found any, you can toggle on yes right there in the top right, and then the app will prompt you to enter more information, total number found, and then the sex and size for up to 10 Dungeness. The final screen, you'll see an opportunity to add notes and comments. This is where you can add any questions for us. And again, that team on the other side, the crab team, the MoltSearch team, they're very responsive and looking at these surveys as they come in. So they'll respond to you via email and love discussing tricky IDs this way. You should comment on what you use to measure the crabs, if not a caliper, and any other observations or protocol tweaks you may have made. It all goes here, and then you submit. So all right there. And then bingo presto, you are done. And then what do you do if you can't confidently rule out as a green crab or a molt fragment smaller than a half carapace that appears to be a green crab? Just include it in the collection photo and make a note in the comments field for someone to see. And if you did find a live or a dead green crab for sure, report it through the MyCoast report form indicating that the condition of the crab is alive or dead. If it's dead, please record the sex and carapace width as you would with a molt and take it home with you in case additional information is needed. It'll probably be pretty stinky, so store it somewhere that works for you, like a freezer is often good. If it's alive, take several pictures from different angles, record the sex and measure the carapace. And then feels weird to everybody, but it's really important. You must release it. It seems counterintuitive, but green crabs are a prohibited species and illegal to possess alive. Also, there are many cases of mistaken identity, and some of our native crabs have been killed as a result. So we're going to not kill any crabs, keep it alive, just make sure to document it well. And don't forget to check the local rules around for collecting on the beach. So after your molt search is all done, and you recorded the result of your survey, you submitted your survey on the last page, you can also save your photos to submit later from home or on a computer. Just don't forget your starting point and your starting time, as well as that location. And then you're going to dispose of your molts. You may want to crush them if you plan to survey the same stretch of the beach repeatedly. And what happens if you found a European green crab? We'll follow up with you through an email. Just a couple more slides. And your report, once confirmed, will get published to the MyCoast website, where you can see all the others that are being submitted around the Salish Sea and a few on the coast, as you see, which don't go into our main database. The result is a map that shows where people are looking, that shows managers where the gaps are in those efforts and where their limited monitoring resources are best spent. Molt search results is this molt search effort results in way more eyes on the beach. It's super important in keeping an eye out for the very first green crab sign that washes ashore in a new place. You can be those eyes for your favorite local shore. And this map is really cool to check out. I love seeing the growing number of San Juan County surveys submitted. So the 4 simple steps of the molt search: prepare, choose a location, gather your tools. 2, conduct your survey. Submit, sort, identify after your survey is done, sort, identify, take photos, measure only if you think you found a green crab or if you want to do the Dungeness data, and then you submit your molt survey, and that's it. Thank you so much again. My email, well, you probably already have it, jess@sanjuans.org if you have any questions. And I hope to see you on the beach next week on Orcas Island or the following week on Lopez. And if you aren't able to make those in-person trainings, then let me know if you're interested in the next in-person one on San Juan or anywhere else, and I'll let you know. Thank you so much.